Well, howdy, Church Project. Good morning. So good to see you this summer Sunday. We are doing something that we have done historically in the past in the month of June. If you're new to Church Project, you should know, if you don't already, that we take books of the Bible and preach systematically through them. But it's not the only way, and we take a moment to show some other ways that God presses in and speaks. And I love this idea that we get to do every June, where we get to sit down and have a conversation with people who are living something out in an extraordinary way that is an example for me, that has inspired me, that I want all of you to meet. Jesus has told us to take care of orphans and widows and the oppressed and the vulnerable and prisoners, and plant churches. I mean, we see these things all throughout Scripture, clear commands, and so we're doing a lot of that. But when I find somebody in this world who I've known for a long time and they keep elevating, they're not slowing down, they're not heading to retirement or, decelerating, they're accelerating, I need you to meet them. And one such person is my good friend, Peter Mutabazi. Would you welcome Peter to the stage? Peter, please come join us. Good to see you, mi amigo.
Thank you.
How you doing, buddy?
I'm good.
This is the most traveled man I've ever been around. And so we couldn't remember where we met, but Peter's life and story is awesome. We've stayed connected over the years. And so not only have I been watching, as are millions of people, your life from the outside, but I get to text you and call you and have meals with you throughout the year when you're in Houston. And before we start talking, I just want to tell everybody in the room, I tell you in front of everybody, how much I respect you. I personally love and respect you, and just seeing the way you've lived your life, I'm honored that you're here with us. So thank you, Peter, for coming in and being part of this today.
Thank you for having me here. So my name is Peter Mutabazi. I speak 7 languages and English is my 4th language. So today, if I curse you, please forgive me. I usually tell people you can throw your iPhone at me and have 2 teenagers that might use them while we go, But I'm originally from Uganda. My mom is from Uganda. My dad is from Uganda. Born and raised in a small little village in Uganda. The poor of the poorest. Growing up in my home, they never told me to dream. They never told me to be hopeful. Think about this way. If a mother cannot feed you for the night, how does she tell you to dream? So for us, dreaming was lying to yourself. At the age of 4, I began to realize not only were poor, but my father was the most abusive human being you could think of. So I had poverty on one side and a mean dad on the other side. So for me, I didn't know how to pray, but my prayer was, Lord, help me so I don't see tomorrow, because today was bad and I did not want to repeat it the next time. At the age of 4, I thought my father would kill me. So I thought, why give him the opportunity to do so? So I had never been 20 miles away from my village. So I went to the bus station and I asked, hey, of all these buses, which one goes the farthest? And the lady said that one. And I got in a bus and I ran away 500 kilometers away, and I ended up in Kampala. And I had one option. That one option was to be a street kid. So from the age of 10 to until 15 years old, I was a street kid. Well, you might ask, what is the street life in Uganda? Well, think of it, you don't even have anything to compare with here in the United States. But think of it of a stray animal, That's how we were treated. That's how my life was. I slept in the sewer. Why the sewer? Because it smelled so bad that no other human being can go there. And that was my life. Also, some people didn't give us food, so they would throw it in the garbage. So we had to run before the dogs got to the food so we can have that food. And so that was my life for 5 years. Until one day, as street kids, we learned how to survive. Steal while you're helping, And most time we steal food. So one day I saw a gentleman who we knew you can afford food. If you're wearing glasses and you have khakis and you have shoes, that means you can afford food. So today, if you're wearing glasses, you have khakis and shoes, watch out for your wallet, okay? And so I followed him, and as I followed him, as soon as he bought his food, I wanted to carry it, and he said, hey, put my food down. So I put his food down, and he followed by asking me, what is your name? And that rattled me. Why? Because for 5 years, no one human being had ever asked me what my name was. So him wanting to know my name, that was scary, because for everyone who was kind was abusive at the same time. So for us, kindness meant run for your life. So before I could run, he gave me something to eat and he left. Next week he comes back. He gives me something to eat. He left. The third, fourth week I kind of knew what he buys, where he stops, and what time he comes to the city. And I knew one day someone knows my name. One day I did not have to steal because he gave me something to eat. And so he fed me for 1.5 years. And one day he said, hey, Peter, if you had an opportunity to go to school, would you go to school? I laughed because I thought he was mocking me. Think of this way. I grew up in a home where I was told I would never amount to anything, that I was worthless. My father every day said, I wish you were never born so I did not have to feed you. So as a kid who comes from that world, for someone to tell you to go to school, it's more like me telling you they are sending people to the moon. Who would like to go, you know? How many of you go to bed saying, I would like to go to the moon? Well, as a street kid, how often do you go to bed saying, I would like to go to school? We thought school is for the one who are mom and dad, and those who are hopeful. For me, I never dreamt because it felt like it's a lie in some way. And so he left and he came back. He said, hey, if you go to school, there will be lunch, dinner, and breakfast. I said, what time do we leave? You know, what do we got? And that's how I went to school, not to be a teacher, not to be anything, but because he said there will be food. And I never thought there's anywhere in the world where you can have 3 meals a day. So because he knew my name, and that's what took me to school and changed my life forever.
Man. Yeah.
When I came to the United States, my first day, I arrived in Los Angeles and the family who was hosting me took me for dinner, you know? So I ate food and I was cleaning the plate with my hands and she said, hey, do you want more? I said, oh, you can have more? So I got more. But while I was eating, I noticed like there were waiters, they were carrying food and they were passing by. And so I asked this person, I said, hey, where's that food gonna go? And they looked at my eyes and said, well, it's going to be thrown away. And in those moments, I really began to ask God, do you love us the same way? Do you love us like others can have so much throw away and others can die for lack of beans? I did not have a name until I was 2 years old. Why? Because for every 100 children were born in my village, 60 would die before the age of 2. So my mom didn't give me a name until 2. Why? For lack of beans. And so for me, watching that food thrown away, I think the anger of God, how can you love them so much that they even have so much throw away, you know? But then I began to also ask myself, wait a minute, now I can have 3 meals, 4 meals, sometimes 5 meals, you know? But then what am I going to do? And I think for me, Luke 12:48 is what convicted me. To whom much is given, much is required. And I knew of all people in the world, I was the wealthiest man on the planet who didn't have a home. Now I have a home. No one, I could never dream, but now I can dream and I can have much food. So for me, that's when I really began to say, you know, for bringing me here, what can I do for others? So I decided to work for any organization or any charity that was all about children, and that's really what I wanted to do. To live Luke 12:48, how much is given, for me was I got to serve others. I got to help kids who are in the same position as I am, while I live in a place where I can have as much food as I wanted. I get to travel over the world. And in my travel, I always traveled with families who were adopting in Ethiopia or in Uganda. But I had never seen anyone who looked like me who was adopting. They were always married and Caucasian. So I thought, you have to be those in order to be to do any adoption. But also I asked, is there a way I can adopt? And I was told, no, you know, as a male, absolutely no. So I knew, okay, it cannot work for me. But in some way, I really had wanted to not just look for sponsorship for children all over the world, but I wanted to live that life in the United States. And that's when I came to know about foster care. And I knew foster care, these are kids who just grew up like me. But I didn't know they would allow me to be a foster parent. So I walked into the foster care system and I said, hey, would you allow me to mentor teenagers? Because I thought, come on, who can give me 1 hour with a teenager, you know? And the social worker who received me said, hey, have you ever thought of being a foster dad? I said, yes, I think about that every day, but I'm not qualified to be. And she said, why? I said, I'm single. She's like, come on, you can be a foster dad. Literally that day I signed up and I began the classes the next day. And since then, I've had 47 children and I've adopted 3. And right now I have 6 in my home and it's really been a joy. Again, for me, to live Luke 12:48, who much is given, much is required. And I know that I'm the wealthiest human being on the planet, that I knew I can do something. I have every trauma they have, and I knew through the kindness of a stranger, I overcame that, and I knew I could be a foster dad to kids who needed a dad, and it's really been a joy. Culturally, I come from a different culture, that we truly are a village. We live as a village. Most time my mom could never afford salt, so we had to go to the neighbor to borrow some salt. Or sometimes we could not afford the matchbox, so if you needed fire, you went to the neighbor to get that heart to create that. And so for me, that's my nature. But I think for me, knowing that God has given us so much, like knowing one day, if my whole goal in life is one day to live and live with Him in heaven, like when I meet Him, like I would want Him to say, you live in the United States, what did you do? That for me, I wanted to say, you gave me all, and here's how I'm going to use it in the best way possible. And for me, the best way I can say is, yes, as Americans, you are absolutely blessed in every way, shape, form. But that's how God loves you that much, that He's given you extra and extra. And I think as me questioning how many meals I can have, I had my first pair of shoes at 16 years old. I never slept on a mattress until 16 years old. So for me, when I live and sleep in that mattress, to look back and say, God, now that I'm comfortable, what do you have for me that I can live for you? What I love to tell my kids who are Americans say, if we can learn how to be grateful, we get to know what we have. But before we are grateful to what we have, then we don't know. Most time I tell them, hey, go to your closet, open. If you don't have 4 pairs of shoes, I'll go get you some. And usually they go back and say, I got 6. Okay, we're fine, But in some way for me, helping them to know, how do we go back to the little we have? Whatever you have, and be grateful for it before we can always, I think, want in the next. For me, again, the best way I can say is God has blessed you because He loves you. And that's the one thing that we should maybe have every day, gratitude. The more we are gratitude or grateful, the more we really get to see what He's given us in a way.
Why foster care? What's the problem? And what do we need to solve?
Why foster care? So as a street kid, I would hear people say, what a mother will let their kids be street, But my mother was getting the same abuse as I was getting. She loved me absolutely, but there's no way she protected me since she was considered a second-class citizen. But she was being abused every day. And the hardest part for me was the guilt of the abuse my mother received most time was because she went to my dad and said, hey, the kids haven't eaten. Would you give them the food? And she got beatings for that. So for us as kids, we were afraid to say we're hungry so we can protect our mom. In foster care, it's easy to look at those moms. It's easy to look at them and see as villains. But until we've understood how they got there, then we can judge them. I don't know any mother that would give birth to a child so they can go into foster care. I've never met any. But along the way, there wasn't someone to lift them up. There wasn't a safety net for them to say, hey, you're struggling, how can we help you? There wasn't an opportunity for them to be somewhere. And I'm a man too, that we hold moms accountable, but we never hold dads accountable. In a way that we have to look at our unity and see them. The other part, 80%, or about 65% of kids who come into foster care, their families were in foster care as well. So it's a cycle that repeats and repeats and repeats. So if we can intervene by truly being there for the kids before we lose them, then we've broken the cycle of foster care. If we could love these teenagers, they are no bad kids. They're kids looking for someone to show them the ropes, to guide them, also to show them that they matter and they can overcome whatever challenge they've gone through. That we have to look at all. And in that way, we get to stop foster care. Again, as I said, over 60% are kids who grew up also their parents were in foster care. So in order to do so, we get a cut where it's coming from. And if we can break that cycle for the kids, then we're gonna handle and protect our kids. The other part, I'm gonna be honest. I get to see people say, man, I can never be a foster parent because I'm afraid that I gotta let them go and I'm not sure I can do that, you know? That is a difficult part to say. For me, here's how I look at it. Actually, your fear, that attachment is what every foster child needs. Because they never had someone to fight and be there for them. So the fear of letting them go actually is what we need of every parent, because we know you're gonna fight for them in every shape, everywhere. The other part too is God ordained their moms to be moms, not me, you know? And I've understood foster care is temporarily. How can we be there for kids as we let their parents, whoever they are, to struggle and overcome whatever they're going through? But it takes a village. It takes you and I. And I think for me as a believer, that's what I understand sacrifice. You know, it is difficult, but truly the best reward you could give to any child, to have a safe home, but also to be able to go back to mom and dad who love them the most. I live in Charlotte, North Carolina. We have 1,100 kids in foster care in my county. We have 1,400 churches. So 1,100 kids in foster care, 1,400 churches. So if one church could say, hey, we're gonna lift one family waiting to foster, and we're gonna come alongside and be the bridge to make sure they have food, their grass is mowed, we would put a dent just to my county. But what if we did it as a nation? What if, I love your house church. They're the best places to be. Every time I come, I want to be part of that. But what if our house church, we decide to say, we're going to be the one that provides a meal for every foster family that is in our family, in our church, once a week? What if, men, you love to mow your yard, but what if you said, I'm going to mow my yard every day, but also I'm going to find one single mom who's a foster parent, mow their yard as well? What if you moms and grandparents who do you're the amazing bakers on the planet, what if you baked extra and you gave it to a mom or a dad or someone taking care of teens who are in foster care? What if you guys who have jobs, what if you could take some of our teenagers and show them where you work for one day a month? What if you took them for a video game so they can get to see what a normal family looks like, what a normal human being treats theirs they never had? What if each one of us can do something? Remember, I like to use the word, it takes a village. In our village, we all have different roles. I can tell you, we can't all be foster parents. It is a calling. It is hard, it's difficult. But we can all do something along the way. Moms, you know, when you see a mom struggling, don't tell your other friend. Look back and say, how can I help? How can we help you? And in that way, we get to help moms that are struggling. I love that you're building a clinic here. Man, I wish some they don't get the best resource that they need. But what if our church was the venue, the place where any foster family in this community choose to come for the resource they can't get anywhere else, because we are offering the best in that case. Then we solve it. I thought I was a Christian until I became a foster dad, you know? And then I began to question my faith. The kids will humble you. The kids know what button to push in so many ways. But I think for me, it's really brought me closer to the Lord, you know? That I get to know sometimes how my kids treat me, or say, like, that's really what I do to the Lord every day. That I'm more on my knees and depending on Him more than ever before, on how He really shows me kindness. But for me too, that I get to take in kids. When they bring kids, I pick them at the hospital or at the police station or at Walmart, you know. But most time is you're angry that, God, how could you let this child go through this? You know, and you're pointing a finger at the parents, you know. But then that you get to really meet the parents. You get to know how they got there and how they got into trouble. And then that empathy is really what helps you to love even more, you know? Places where I just want to give up, but because you get to know, because you get to investigate and get to know how they got there, that empathy truly helps you even love the kids the more. For me, yes, I think I'm more on my knees every day because I need that. There's no way I can make through the day. Sometimes when my walls are going through holes, my teenagers are not happy, but to look at the Lord and say, Lord, I know they're angry. How can I learn how to listen to them? How can I give them grace? How can I even remove myself? When it comes to trauma, you get to learn when a child is yelling at you, when they're calling you a name, really it's not about you. They're trying to communicate what they're feeling. They're trying to share those traumas, and in that way, I get to do the best I can. And also for me, I've given to the Lord, my job is to provide a safe and loving home about overcoming trauma that will come at His own time. When the kids are ready, or when they feel they're in a place to do so. But my first initial place is to provide a safe and loving home. And for me, that's been wonderful to die to myself every day. But also, too, that you have a mom and dad on the other side that are so grateful to say, thank you for loving my child. Thank you for hearing me. Thank you that you get to call on me when I forget there's court dates, that it's beyond just a child, but really the entire family. And that for me has helped me to love God more, to seek Him more, to be on His every morning and every night. Sometimes I have kids who give me the time of the day, and as soon as I put them to bed, they're like, Dad, I love you so much, and I'm able to look at that and say, that's what I do to God, to my Lord. I yell, I complain, I name it all, but at the end of the day, my kids get to say, Dad, I love you, and the same way attitude that I want to explore, to say, God, I love you. Thank you for loving me, that I get an opportunity to make a difference in a child's life. That isn't not so much about me, but truly about God's grace and mercy every day. I have pictures for my family, if they're possible, so I can kind of give you the face of what my family looks like. There we go. That's my day-to-day life. My teenager's like, what am I doing here? My daughter is pinching the other one, Next picture. My daughter. So for me, I've always taken boys. But one day I got a phone call for a boy. Social workers don't tell you the truth most of the time. They say, there's a boy. I said, I'll take him. And then they pause. They said, and there's a girl. I'm like, okay, I'll take the girl as well. As soon as she walks in that family, she's the head of the family, just so you know. Next. This is the little brother. Every time I put him into bed, he says, Dad, I love you. But what he's saying, no one ever put me to bed. Next. Yes. So as a foster dad, I said, I'll never take in a toddler, ever. So I get a phone call. They said, there's a toddler. I said, no, that's not for me. And then they paused and said, she's the sister of the other you have. So I said, okay, I'll take. I have not slept in 1 year and a half. Next, this is he came into foster care to me at 16, and he called me. He said, Dad, I want to talk to you, and it's really serious. When a teen says it's really serious, you think about the police, someone is pregnant. I mean, you think the worst things, And he said, I've been 12 homes, and everyone has said they will adopt me, but they never did. They adopted my siblings. So would you consider being my dad? So he's my 21-year-old right now. Next. This one was left at the hospital. They called me. I said, no, not now. But they said, just for the weekend. It's called respite. So I took him in, and as soon as he walked in my home, I said, you can call me Mr. Peter. And he looked at me and said, no, but can I call you my dad? This is what I said, hell no. And he said, did you just cuss? I said, I'm sorry, And then he looks back, he said, I was told, since I'm 11 years old, I can choose who my father should be. And I said, son, you're leaving on Monday. No. So on Monday comes, this is what I found out. He came into foster care at 1.5. He was placed with a family. That family adopted him at 4. This family had dropped him at the hospital. They never said goodbye or the reason why they did not want him anymore. So he's my first adopted son, Anthony Mutabazi. Next. We have 2 dogs, Simba and Rafiki. My kids are all Caucasian, so I thought I need something African. So Simba and Rafiki. Next. I think that's it. But we got another little one, an African-American boy. He's somewhere, but his last picture that we have. So I've got 6 kids right now in my home and Trader Joe. So I wanted to show you the faces, but also the reason sometimes how they come into foster care.
Yeah, it's beautiful. So please just give a summary and a challenge.
Absolutely. So I'll begin with me. that I grew up the poor of the poorest, abused in every shape, form you could imagine. But I chose to let my past define my future. And so if you're here, that you've gone through dark marriage, difficult job, whatever burdens you've had, rather use them as a foundation to do something good for yourself and for those. Every time I wanted to give up, the family who took me in, my foster family, would say, remember the life of Joseph. What did Joseph say when his brothers found him? This is what he said: for what you meant for evil, God used it for good. So if you're here and struggling and have those baggages, use them as a foundation to do for others. The other part I would say is, ask yourself. I had to ask myself, to whom much is given, much is required. What has God given you that you can do for him and for those around you? What has he? Sometimes you have the best family you've ever had. Well, would you provide for those who never had one? Number 3 is, it takes a village to raise a child. Let's be a village for one another. Not for just those that we can play golf with, but sometimes those who don't even understand our world, that we can love them, not judge them, and be there for them. And for our little ones, it is our responsibility to take care of our village. We cannot wait for Californians to come here. We don't want them here, But it's our job. It is our job as Houstonian, is that how you say? To take care of the least of these. The sick, the hungry, the homeless, even those who have, in a way that God requires too. And then one day when we get to meet Jesus, we get to say, God, you gave me, and this is what I use it for. He will say, good and faithful son.
Yeah, that's good. Thank you, Peter. I got to stand up when I do things like this. So last night at dinner, I asked Peter, I said, what's your greatest need right now? He said, the little African-American boy that you said, you have your dogs with African names, but you've only adopted one. You're in the process of adopting him. He has 2 siblings that also need to be adopted, and Peter has said yes. But the reason that he can't adopt them right now is because he doesn't have a car large enough to do that. And I asked why. I was curious. He said, because of the rules. Like, if there's a fire and you need to get kids away, you have to have enough seats in the car for all the kids at one time when there's an emergency. And if you have 2 parents, you have 2 cars, and it's always fine. But Peter with one, he's got to have a Suburban that seats 8. And so I want us to buy him a Suburban. And I mean, in doing so, well, I hadn't asked anybody this. I may get in trouble from our board and others. But we'll figure that out later. In doing so, we're actually gonna, I mean, this guy's crying because he wants to be able to adopt 2 more kids. In doing so, we're gonna be able to open up a home for 2 more kids. And then Peter will be maxed out and can't adopt anymore. Yeah. So and we're gonna buy. I mean, we're not gonna. It'd be a new thing. That's what we do here. We're gonna take care of you well.
Delivering today, help 2 more kids get adopted. So, what's better than that?
Hey, Church Project, it's Monday, the day after Sunday, which was yesterday. I said, hey, church, if we raise enough money, we'll get this guy a Suburban. And here it is. You guys gave, and I love the generosity of our church, and I just wanted you to celebrate what so many of you participated in. We're always generous, and we're doing a lot of things for people, but when we go above and beyond what we normally do, a video like this is just to tell you thank you. I love you, church, and I think Peter wanted to say thank you, yeah?
Absolutely. On behalf of the children in foster, not just my family, but the kids even here, to see us and know we are family and want to do something for us, it means the world to us. So, Church Project, we appreciate you. We love that we are your project.
It's great. It's a brand new car. Y'all did great, Church Project. Peter, we love you, man. Thanks for all the work you're doing.
Thank you.
Yeah, buddy. Great.
Hi guys, my name is Anthony. This is my dad. You're supposed to say hey.
Oh.
And this is my dad.
Hey.
All right. It's always crying. My dad.
Hey. I'm saying what you're saying. What
Just
do I
smile and wave.
Okay, don't say anything. All right.
This is my dad. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe and hit that notification bell. That way you can be notified whenever another one of our videos come out. And we love to see your comments, so make sure that you leave a comment down below of what we should do next and if we should bring back cooking with Anthony. And thank you so much for supporting us.